Today we talk to media entrepreneur who's also an actress in her own right, and I must add, produced wonderful, wonderful films, including Baby Mamas, which I remember very vividly. I'm unashamed to admit I went to that girl flick. And it was a great production. Salamina Mosese, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do people still reduce you to just baby mamas?
I don't think I consider it reducing so much. It's one of the projects that I am most proud of. And because it's pretty recent, I think that's why, it's top of mind for people when they see us, and it's currently on Netflix. So everywhere I go, people are like, hey, Subhanile,
Baby mamas.
Yeah.
It was actually a feel-good movie, but it was also not empty. It wasn't devoid of a strong message.
Yes, thank you so much for that. My business partner, Stefina Zwane, wrote it, and I fell in love with the first draft immediately, although I still did a script edit on it, and then we brainstormed some more. But I think the fundamental concept of it was we want to show single moms in a light that is not as disparaging as that we have seen in past times. Anytime somebody's like, oh, my baby mama did this, it's usually quite negative. So we wanted to give the women's perspective, make it light, but without shaming the men in their lives at the same time. So we really hoped that it would still give a positive message while still being topical.
And being funny as well, because it's actually a very funny production. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, you shouldn't be laughing at this. This is a girl flick, man. What's the problem?
Yeah.
But this is Women's Month now, right? And 1956, the women like Sophie de Bruyn, who's still alive, by the way, a real icon and stalwart of the struggle, Sophie de Bruyn, the Helen Josephs, and a whole lot of other powerful women marched on Stradom in Pretoria at Union Buildings. And the past laws were the problem at the time. What is Salamina Mosese marching to Pretoria to achieve?
I think a little bit would be a continuation of what the women of 56 were struggling for. The march highlighted the strength of South African women, but it was also about protesting the lack of a freedom of movement, especially for Black women in the urban areas. These days, women are still, in essence, having to sort of limit their movements because of
watch themselves.
Gender-based violence. It is, like the president said, definitely a second pandemic in South Africa. So I would definitely be marching against that. I think it's a great travesty that, at a time where we are already feeling so vulnerable and so uncertain, we still have to consider our survival and just fearing for, people around us. These are men who are in our communities, in our families, in our jobs, our workplaces. It's a scary time. I think I've never been so unsettled as a woman as I've been in the last 3 years, as these numbers have been going up so drastically.
The numbers going up, Salamina, but also the brutality of the attacks. That is unprecedented. How do you think
inhumane?
Yeah. I mean, men have always assaulted women, let's admit. Yeah. They've always beaten women up. Yeah. Husbands have always beaten their wives. But they didn't stab them 27 times and hang them in the bush.
Yeah.
Your take on what it will take to counter something like this.
Look, I think there aren't enough conversations that we can have about this, and there are many solutions that we as women can try and suggest and bring to the table. It's very clear that there are very serious societal, cultural, and relational issues that underlie this pandemic. Um, and, you know, it's going to take us having to confront them, to find out what they are, bring them to the surface. Let's have the conversations about how many times, you know, when young women get married, we are told to turn the other cheek in the case that you are brutalized in your home. How many times young women who have unfortunately been taken advantage of by uncles and cousins and older brothers, etc., and then they're told, you know, batho ba tlo reng, ke ditaba tsa ka mo ntlung, we must sweep them under the carpet. You know, it goes to, you know, the patriarchy under which we are raised. It goes to the brutality that our moms themselves have undergone, and then it gets passed on, you know. So it's a very multiple layered conversation. And then, of course, you know, men feeling emasculated by the surge and the confidence of, you know, modern day women, men feeling emasculated by, you know, the bosses in the workplace, all of that. And then just, you know, criminality and how it's been allowed to just get out of hand. It's such a multi-layered conversation, you know, that there are, you know, so many issues that we need to peel away. But it has to happen as a matter of urgency. And I would love to appeal to the men of South Africa, especially the Black men of South Africa, who have intimate knowledge of what is going on, to really be at the forefront of this conversation. It's not a conversation that can be driven by the victim.
Wow. You are a confident woman, by all means. You're married to a very dynamic man who's also in the industry, and you are an activist in your own right. You are an entrepreneur. Who are the women that make Salamina get excited and motivated?
Sure. I think first and foremost, the first love of my life, my mom, you know, I saw her struggles. I think I get my strength from her, even her quiet strength, her quiet confidence. She is a very dynamic woman. She's in social work. So I think the activist in me is born out of the work that I saw her do, even growing up. I remember some of my earliest memories as a child, wondering some days why she would come home with, you know, shoes and socks and milk, and she always had things. And when I asked her, you know, where are these things going? There was always a family in Ivory Park that she's taking this to, and there's a child that she's fostering on this side, somebody that she's mentoring. So I think definitely my mom, a shout out to her, Happy Mpilo. She's great. She works for City of Joburg. And then, of course, as an entrepreneur, you know, women like Wendy Luhabe, who have managed to break that glass ceiling and do amazing things in the world of business, and really just putting female-centered ventures at the forefront. And in media, you know, women like Joanne Strauss, who, you know, we met as a young winner of Miss South Africa, who then went on to do amazing things in the space that I love, the media space. There are so many women. I could go on all day.
No, you're one of them, by the way. The stuff that you're doing for someone as young as you are, you know, you've challenged me to take this gender-based violence conversation further. So I promise that I want to bring you in, because you are a wonderful storyteller. But your message in 30 seconds to the women of South Africa this Women's Month 2020.
I think let's remember to celebrate how far we've come, especially with regards to the racial issues in our country. But also, most importantly, let's celebrate the achievements of women, you know, in the social sphere, in the political sphere, the cultural sphere, and of course, how far we've come economically. I think, you know, we proudly can say that we have broken many ceilings, and now we are in boardrooms where very serious conversations that drive this country forward are being had, and that is something that we can pat ourselves on the back for. So happy Women's Day.
Well, Salamina Mosese will not be, this will not be the last time I speak to you. I can promise you that. And have a happy Women's Month. I like to celebrate the month rather than just the day because there's so much more. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.